Hello and welcome to ComSpark Magazine, the interview series. I'm Dave Hammond with Parallel Technologies, and we're partnering with ComSpark Magazine on a series of interviews. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Chris Hickok, the CIO of Home City Ice. So Chris, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Chris, to kick things off, I have a handful of questions, but
Sure.
with Home City Ice, you mind giving me, just a quick overview of your career path, how you went from truck driver to CIO?
Yeah. Well, we make a joke. I mean, I think even our general counsel came off of a delivery truck. So fortunate to work for a place where, promotion from within is kind of the staple. And it is a very common practice to see most, if not all of our upper management has come from a delivery truck. And so I started during college, which is when we hire most of our delivery drivers, because just think about it, peak season, they're out of school, don't have anything to do. And I thought, well, let me make some money on an ice truck. And so did that for 3 or 4 years. And as I was graduating, they said, hey, have you ever thought about managing a plant? And I said, sure, let me give that a try. And so spent 2 or 3 years managing a plant. And the thing, I really enjoyed that because you're brand new out of school and you get a chance to kind of come in. It's a very seasonal business, right? And so with that, there's a lot of ebb and flow and a lot of chance to kind of knock customer socks off, if you will, right? And I kind of thought that was fun, to bypass or surpass expectations for, what they would expect out of an ice vendor. But at the same time, it's not just you doing that. You're trying to, train up a group of college age students to do the same thing. And so at a very young age, you get the chance to kind of try to profitably lead people, which, I mean, when it comes to business, right? Like that's a huge, huge advantage. And so
Right.
I did that for a few years and kind of moved around and managed a couple of plants. And then had an opportunity to go customer facing. I thought, okay, well, this is new. Haven't had that piece of it. I've gotten to be on the delivery side of things, but never gotten to really sit in front of a prospective client and say, here's why we're the best. And so I did that for 3 or 4 years. And got an even broader perspective. And so just neat to see that and neat to kind of get a few sales type wins in there, kind of bring Home City to some new places and have some great client relationships to this day as a result of that. So towards the tail end of that, there was some IT type stuff within sales that needed to implement a CRM and needed to do, 2 or 3 different things there. And so they said, hey, do you want to give this a shot? I said, I think you're a nerd. And I said, well, thank you. I am. How did you know? So got to work with some project delivery around sales and I just loved it. Loved the opportunity, loved the efficiency, loved the lever that the technology brought to the department. And so did a couple projects outside of the department. And eventually it was a thing of, hey, we don't really have that bridge in between the business side, which you've now gotten 2 or 3 different perspectives on, and then the IT world. And so, hey, do you mind to kind of be firmly planted in both of those? And so to this day, it's kind of what I do. I didn't come up through the IT ranks. And so I have a lot of people smarter than I am kind of doing that sort of that work and vendor partners and everything else, but just really kind of understanding the broad business and what we're trying to accomplish and how we're trying to serve customers and all that good stuff and delivering technology with it. So 18 years, it's been a freaking blast. Look forward to the next how many ever, because it's a lot of fun.
So it sounds like, the typical tenure, that's pretty common within the organization.
It is. And so, we are experimenting, with here and there, bringing in people from the outside just to make sure we don't get stagnant, make sure it's not stale. But for the most part, yes, you'll find people that came in, early 20s here for 20, 30 years, that sort of thing. So I joked for a long time on the executive team, I was the rookie at 18 years. And finally, we promoted a couple people to where I'm not the rookie anymore, but my goodness, yes. So that is pretty common. You have to be intentional about, making sure that we get new ideas and fresh type things in there with that kind of tenure. But it's a very common thing.
So out of the 18 years that you've been with Home City Ice, how many of those years have you been in the IT leadership?
Going on, I guess, 7 or so years now. And so only within the last year as a true part of the executive team, which I thought was a awesome thing that the company did, was to put the IT leadership role on the C level, because I think it really demonstrates the importance that they see in technology as a driver and a differentiator, right? Not that it, if you're not at that level, that's not the case, but I do think made a very clear statement that technology is a huge driver in our strategy by doing that. So about a year now at the C level. Yeah.
Fantastic. It's interesting. So, Chris, that's a nice segue into my next question, which is, everybody's using ICE, but not everybody is very familiar with your industry. So, does this line of business pose any significant challenges?
Well, how long do you got? Because we could talk for a while. Yes, it does. And I think the key piece of that is something that you maybe think about, but you don't really until you're in this industry really think about, which is the seasonality. I alluded to it before. We'll do 70% of our sales in a 4 or 5 month window. And so being able to be responsible and scale up when busy season first begins to hit in May or June, and then scale back operations to where they need to be towards the end of the season. And so with that, you can imagine the demands of managing a seasonal workforce, making sure that everything from a technology, from an operations, from a business perspective is ready for those peak 4 or 5 months, because you can't go to a customer and say, it's a really hot July. I'm sorry, we weren't prepared for that. That's the only thing we pay you for, right? And so, I would say that's the number one challenge. We're also, ICE is a goofy product to try to transport on a truck. So you see a lot of groceries at your local grocery store that come in on a semi. And they'll come in, Pop-Tarts will come in with popsicles and everything else on one grocery delivery truck. ICE by weight is a very low price item. And so these grocers say, I'm not putting that on my truck. You can deliver it to my store. And so that's a pretty unique challenge in that we're in the DSD business. So we're literally going to the last mile for each of these stores. Whereas most of the other products, not all, but most that you're going to see at a local grocery store are coming through a warehouse. And so for us, managing that logistical beast, if you will, it's very easy to overspend, overdo, over service, and that doesn't help from inventory rotation or any of that stuff. And so for us, trying to manage that efficiently, it's a barrel of laughs. Let me tell you, it's a whole lot of fun. I think it's a unique thing to our business that you go and buy a bag, you don't think about it, and we don't want you to have to think about it. But since you asked, I just wanted to elaborate.
It's so funny. You're right. I never once think of how my ICE gets to the grocery store, just certain things in your industry that you're right. You just would never think of.
And I'm sure everybody's job is to a certain extent that you think about, all the work I put into this, you probably have no idea kind of type thing. Right. So it leads me to think anything that I see, on a grocery shelf or a service I buy, you start to think about all the stuff that goes into it behind it. It makes you kind of appreciate it a little bit more, right?
Absolutely. Now, when those 4 or 5 months out of the year that are your busiest, and all the delivery trucks are being fleeted out and used, do you guys ever outsource any of that transportation?
No, very rarely, because if we were just delivering on kind of a mass pallet drop quantity basis, you can do that fairly efficiently with a third-party logistic, and we'll utilize that to move ICE around within our network. But when it comes to us actually servicing our customers and getting ICE into stores, we find that it's very difficult to train that same level of customer service, because at the end of the day, all we do is take a bag from our truck, put it in a box inside of the store, right? And so we found that trying to outsource that to someone that isn't trained in A, safely operating a vehicle, B, the rigors of customer service, because ICE is a product that melts, right? And so any kind of mess that you leave around an ice box or anything like that, we're trained. We have one of our themes is that we're floor wipers, right? Top management all the way down. We're willing to go in and wipe the floor. And so we find that for a short period of time, it's kind of difficult to onboard someone, a third party, to kind of get that whole piece of it. And I want to make sure if you're in Kalamazoo, Michigan, or Orlando, Florida, you're getting the same exact experience from us. And so we find the best way to do it is to do it ourselves.
Perfect. Chris, thanks so much for joining me today. For the audience, if you'd like to see more, please visit comspark.tech for additional interviews. So, Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.